Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. So here's the mixed blessing of a week like this one. You take a look at the charts, you see that very little actually happened across the board, with perhaps one of the smallest numbers of songs new or returning to the Hot 100, and you just breathe a sigh of relief. Finally, something that's pretty light across the board. But then comes the creeping question of whether or not I'll be able to keep all this interesting on a week where there's little to actually really complain about. But then I did realize there is indeed something, and it ties back into our top 10, most of which was completely static this week and thus boring as all hell, at least for me. Yeah, of course, See You Again by Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puth held onto the top spot, even despite the smallest of airplay gains. Got a stranglehold on YouTube, solid streaming, and consistently good sales to match up with its dominance on the radio. And of course it was enough to keep Bad Blood by Taylor Swift featuring Kendrick Lamar from getting any higher, because even as it gains in airplay and leads on sales, the only real streaming presence it has is on YouTube. Bet you're regretting walking out on Spotify now, eh Taylor? But even if she had that, it still probably wouldn't have been enough to beat Trap Queen by Fetty Wap, which still holds on to number 3 thanks to its stranglehold on streaming and solid sales, even despite steadily losing some airplay. Right beneath it, we got Shut Up and Dance at number 4 by Walk the Moon, which spent the week still gaining airplay and had solid sales to compensate for its non-presence in streaming and YouTube. In other words, all this is just like last week, where things start to change a little bit as Want to Want Me by Jason Derulo sitting at number 5. I mean, sure, no change in position, but airplay and streaming started to dip a little bit, and sales are weakening. It's only here because Uptown Funk isn't strong enough anymore to beat it, even despite being here, even despite losing all across the board at number 6. The problem is that the losses aren't significant enough to knock it back, and the fact that it still does kick all amounts of ass, be it summer or winter. Bruno Mars and Mark Ronson really crafted a gem here. This leads to our one new track, one that's long been charting high in Canada and now has only finally broken the top 10 in the United States. Cheerleader by Oh My, smashing up to number 7. Generally all good news here. It's healthy across the board with particularly strong sales. I can definitely see this rising more as the summer takes hold. Plus, it's actually a pretty good song. It was enough to push back Earned It by The Weeknd to number 8, although the non-existent sales and the heavy loss in airplay did a lot more to hurt it. And Hey Mama by David Guetta, BB Rexa, Nicki Minaj, and Afrojack to number 9, which had a reasonably solid week, with gains in YouTube compensating for an odd slip in streaming, which I didn't expect. Finally, we've got Honey I'm Good by Andy Grammer holding on to number 10, where it did have a solid week in sales and in airplay, even picking up a little bit of streaming here, just not quite enough to make any more of an impact. It did well in keeping the top 10, but not much better. But you see here, it's only one new song having a pretty modest and honestly pretty predictable impact. Not a lot to really say. If you go into songs that are losing or dropping out, same sort of thing. For dropouts, the two big ones are Truffle Butter by Nicki Minaj, Drake, and Lil Wayne dropping out, the only single from the Pink Print that I actually liked, and 4 or 5 Seconds by Rihanna, Kanye West, and Paul McCartney for an album that still hasn't been officially announced, despite having multiple singles now. And the losses that aren't all that difficult to explain either. Chainz by Nick Jonas slipping to 54, or Don't It by Billy Currington falling to 66, both the result of the songs just naturally exiting the charts. Although I will say that Billy Currington's losses did surprise me. You'd think he would have more buzz having just dropped an album. Beyond that, LSD by A$AP Rocky took another hit to 98, but it's arguably too slow and weird and honestly too good for mainstream radio, especially during the summer. The real delight for me was the major hit to Pretty Girls by Britney Spears and Iggy Azalea, which I think it's reasonable at this point just called a flop singles. It tumbled to number 70, mostly for being obnoxiously stupid beyond repair. Dear God, I'm happy it's going away. But it's not all great news though, which takes us to our gains this week, where country radio in particular had a very busy week. It wasn't exactly surprising though to see the boost A Hell of a Night by Dustin Lynch to 89, or House Party to Sam Hunt but to number 65. They're both summer songs, and even though I'm not a fan of either, especially Sam Hunt, I can kind of see and explain why they're charting. Seems Everything by Tonight Looks Good on You by Jason Aldean going to 56. He's enough of an A-lister that I'm surprised this song hasn't risen faster. The slightly bigger surprise is Buy Me a Boat by Chris Jansen at 67, but then again, it's a bro country song about boats. Of course it's gonna do well in the summer. Hell, the one non-country song that got a big boost this week was Planes by Jeremiah and J. Cole, which I'll attribute to Jeremiah seemingly be a guy who gets charting hits for his guest stars while being completely easy to ignore himself. The one big surprise for me was Like a Wrecking Ball by Eric Church getting a boost to 53. Well, it's because I'm not sure why it's continuing to rise on the charts. Yeah, it's got the same sort of washed out style as Little Big Town's Girl Crush, courtesy of having the same producer, but it's so sloppily produced and with such ridiculous lyrics, I just can't take this seriously. It's honestly not good. To each their own, I guess. But now on to our solitary returning entry, and a damn great one it is. But it takes someone to come around to show you how. She's a Look, at this point, I've talked about 21 Pilots so many times that you should all know that I really love this song, even despite probably not being in my top 3 from that album. Hell, from people who didn't even like Blurry Face, they like this song, and for damn good reason. It's just a monumentally strong pop song, coasting behind a great vocal performance from Tyler Joseph, prominent melodies, a great explosive chorus surprise, and starkly memorable lyrics. Never as a bizarre non sequitur like "my taste in music is your face" had so much punch. God, I love this song. Yeah, no complaints with that, no competition for it either, one returning entry. Let's see if the rest of the week was that damn good, shall we? Number 97, Lose My Mind by Brett Eldredge. You know, maybe it was just bad timing, but I missed covering Brett Eldredge's debut album, Bring You Back, when it first dropped back in 2013. I mean, I was getting my sea legs on YouTube and with my blog, and he was just another male country star breaking in the era of bro country. Yeah, talk about a massively stupid oversight on my part, because going through that album in retrospect, I missed a real talent, beyond just a uniquely rich and textured baritone. Despite his production being a little bit slick for my taste, he still fits into neo-traditional country and is a strikingly strong and unique songwriter. You don't hear songs like Raymond or Go On Without Me on mainstream country radio, and I gotta be honest, that's just wrong. Of course, the reason I thought that he was a bro country artist was the songs like Don't Ya and Beat of the Music felt pretty close to that mold, even though, like Billy Currington and Chris Young, his brand of it is still definitely a cut above. That's why his lead-off single from his upcoming album hits me in a kind of a weird place, at least at first. For one, it interpolates a melody from Crazy by Gnarls Barkley and features these oddly jagged guitar lines against a handclap beat that would normally kind of irk me. And yeah, gotta be honest, the production is still too slick to really complement Eldridge's voice all that well. But that interpolation of that melody lends the song a fantastic sense of groove and momentum that Eldridge's subject matter uses excellently. You typically don't see country songs with this much groove and power. It's a song about being crazy and love together that genuinely sounds crazy. So yeah, I definitely can dig this. Recommending this song. Number 94, This Could Be Us by Rae Sremmurd.
This could be us, but you play. This could be us, but you play. Sound crazy. Fuck what the niggas were saying. This could be us, but you playing. This could be us, but you playing. But shit, that's all I was saying.
Well, that was one hell of a nosedive. So for those of you who somehow forgot, Rae Sremmurd's Shrimp Life was the first album I covered in 2015. It will probably be the worst album I cover in 2015, a revoltingly limp slice of concentrated garbage featuring two of the least likable or listenable rappers that I've ever had the misfortune to cover on this show. And thus far, they've charted 4 singles and at least one will make the Hot 100 year-end list for 2015. So I'll discuss that in about 6 months or two. Seriously, guess which list they're gonna end up on. Let's talk about the newest single, which of the 4 sounds most like an actual finished song, and then it actually has a melody thanks to the hollow pianos and some of the horns. Of course, that doesn't distract from the fact that the song is a disjointed, inarticulate mess, right down to the chorus where Sway Lee is lamenting that this girl's acting distant towards him, but the other voice is repeating how money make your girl go down. So okay, if I were to somehow stretch for a meaning, and that is stretching, it'd be about how my girl is only interested in Rae Sremmurd for their money, and yet these guys are still somehow so infatuated that they still want this girl to lie to them and say she loves them, even though they're letting her act like a whore and calling her a whore? Why else would they be trying to compliment her or act like they're hot shit when they so clearly aren't by listening to this song, you can tell. Outside of the sourness I feel in my gut whenever I watch these two try to rap, this is a song asking for me to be sympathetic because these girls are apparently gold diggers, and yet they're talking about my girl, so why should I feel anything but scorn toward these guys? Ugh, this song blows. And watching these two try to act in a music video is embarrassing. Next, number 92, Back It Up by Prince Royce featuring Jennifer Lopez and Pitbull. And one of the things you tend to notice about the Hot 100 is that if you're a Latin star looking for a full mainstream crossover, your best way to do it is to collaborate with Pitbull. In this case, Prince Royce looks to sustain the momentum he got with Stuck on a Feeling and with Snoop Dogg by hooking up with Pitbull and Jennifer Lopez. The latter who got her career resurgence in 2011 thanks to Mr. Worldwide here. So okay, how does the second single turn out? Well, outside of Pitbull not knowing what dancehall is, and Jennifer Lopez singing through gratuitous pitch correction, and the entire song about girls backing up their butts and cheating on their boyfriends, the song's fine enough, I guess. The buzzy synths don't have a lot of texture, but the percussion does, and all three acts do actually have some charisma. But I do think my biggest issue with Prince Royce is how little unique personality I get from him. Yeah, he's got real pipes, I'll give him that, but beyond that, we already have Enrique Iglesias doing a lot of the same thing, and at least Enrique's finally bringing some more distinctive Latin flavor to his material. But you know what, I can't get mad at this. It's inoffensive enough, and it'll play well in the summer if it becomes a hit. I'll take it. Number 86, John Cougar, John Deere, John 316 by Keith Urban. Hey, so you want me to blow all your minds? Keith Urban is 47 years old. He still sounds like he's in his 20s and 30s and looks like it too, lucky bastard. Guess being married to Nicole Kidman for at least a decade keeps you young. In any case, Keith Urban has finally stopped releasing singles from Fuse, which dropped 2 years ago already, and this is his lead-off single for a new album, and I gotta admit, I'm not exactly a fan of it. I get that Keith Urban's always sat on the edge of pop country, but if it wasn't for the lyrics, I wouldn't know what genre it is to classify this. The thick bass line, the incredibly stiff drum machines, the choppy acoustic guitars, the organ interlude, the multiple key changes. I'd say it reminds me most of the late 90s, early 2000s acoustic flavored pop, where Keith Urban originally made his fortune on the countryside, and yet the lyrics are very much about embracing who one is, or in this guy's case, his country roots, which always felt a little bit weird to me because Keith Urban is Australian. What it's most reminiscent of is, say, Sam Hunt, or that song Jonesin' by Billy Currington from his last album, which makes sense because they were both written by Shane McAnally and say the same sort of staccato style that is kind of interesting, but doesn't really do a lot for me, which is pretty much where I fall on the song. But I think my biggest issue with it is that Keith, he's telling us who he is instead of actually showing us who he is. Even on a song like this, telling more of a story might have been better. Just saying. Number 82, 3500 by Travis Scott featuring Future and 2 Chainz.
Only true niggas I know. 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 Ladies order up the champagne, a whole lot of it. Painkillers ain't got back pain, oh you gotta love it.
You know, there's plenty of reasons why people hate Drake, but I think the reason that he doesn't get enough attention is that the majority of people he's put money behind are just terrible. Yeah, The Weeknd isn't bad, we'll get to him in a few minutes, but I just do not see the appeal of acts like Party Next Door or Travis Scott, both who try to be way too dark with their brand of auto-tune debauchery that's less thrilling or intimidating or cool, and more just a cheap Future ripoff. And that's when we have 3500, 7 minutes of Travis Scott, Future, and 2 Chainz engaging in fuzz-saturated luxury porn. It's goddamn unbearable. The best thing I can kind of say about this track is that I can kind of appreciate the murky synths and some of the organs, the tinkling keyboards, and that eerie vibe with hints of guitar that reminds me more than a bit of Kanye's All Day, especially on the chorus. If only the actual content of the song wasn't so badly written luxury rap about doing stupid amounts of drugs and bragging about fur coats that barely even tries to rhyme. And while Travis Scott's verse is bad, Future's is so much worse, where he's still raging about Sierra dumping him and saying he's pissing that sounds like cough syrup. And at least 2 Chainz' hyperbole is a little bit amusing and his rhyming has gotten a little bit better, but none of it is witty enough to excuse the fact this song is 7 minutes, over 7 minutes long, and has enough original content to fill maybe 1.5. And I'll say it again, using such dark, ponderous tones for your luxury rap doesn't make you look imposing, and it sure as hell doesn't make you look like you're having any fun. Granted, when you're around Future, fun isn't just happening, but ugh, it could have been better than this. Next, and finally, number 24, Can't Feel My Face by The Weeknd.
But I love it, but I love it. Oh, I can feel my face when I'm with you. But I love it, but I love it. Oh, and I know she'll be the death of me, at least we'll both be numb.
So remember when I said back a few weeks ago when I said The Weeknd really can't pull off the same sort of pseudo-horror vibe that he was attempting on the Hills, and one of the few R&B artists that could have ever made that work was, say, Michael Jackson? Well, here comes Can't Feel My Face, and The Weeknd trying to pull off the best Michael Jackson impression he can possibly muster, and it's actually not bad. Now, let me stress, it's nowhere near on Michael's level. The bass is nowhere near as tight or defined enough to match the percussion, and the fuzzier elements that The Weeknd smears all over the instrumentation, they don't do a lot for me, and they feel like they're trying to make this track a lot darker than it needs to be. Which is what I'd say about The Weeknd's lyrics too, embracing the whole live fast, leave a beautiful corpse element that I've never found all that fun or interesting. It's really kind of cliched in my opinion. And yeah, The Weeknd isn't as tight or intense as a vocal performer as Michael is. But you know what? It's a hell of a lot more fun and gripping than most of The Weeknd's material. I think my biggest consistent issue with him is that he's not as emotionally evocative as his R&B influences. But you know what? This song is a step in the right direction, so yeah. I don't mind this, I'll take it. So overall, yeah, pretty quick week and pretty easy to evaluate. Yeah, okay, no surprise at all. Tearing My Heart by 21 Pilots just runs away with Best of the Week. With the honorable mention, I'm gonna give it to Lose My Mind by Brett Eldredge for almost single-handedly convincing me to check out that upcoming album. As for the worst, see, I know what all you are thinking, but I'm gonna give it to 3500 by Travis Scott, Future, and 2 Chainz, and the dishonorable mention to This Could Be Us by Rae Sremmurd, because at least that song had a tune, the fragments of a workable idea, and wasn't 7 goddamn minutes long. Dear God, we need some better hip-hop on the charts right now. But let's hope for better next week. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.